Hi, I'm going to give you now the starseed activation card that I pulled this morning. But this also aligned completely with an early morning conversation I had with a client. And this is such an important topic. This card is in the Starseed Oracle pack is the loosen your grip. And the words underneath this are coping mechanism, density, addiction, let God in. And this, combined with the early morning conversation with a client, has made me aware again of how very few people know about the dangers of actually combining an addiction with the awakening process without getting very clear of what happens. This is like free fall. Look, these people are free falling, and this is exactly what happens. And I'm going to tell you some things about this. But first of all, I'm going to read a little from the book on this card, because you cannot successfully combine extreme dark with extreme light. And one of the major ones that come to my mind is 3 cases that I know of people that happened some time ago, because I'm really not connected with people who are still in the dope marijuana circle of recreationally chilling themselves out or using it not medicinally. This isn't when people use it medicinally. This is when people get up in the morning and take a joint to enable them to cope even with the getting up process and getting on with their day in any way. But combining, one of the worst things I've ever seen is people starting to meditate while still on that recreational dope marijuana route. And 3 people I know personally ended up in mental institutions for a period of time. So this is such an important subject, and it not only relates to the dark and the light of those 2, because with marijuana, you're actually taking yourself into a chilled out process. And there's nothing wrong with using it medicinally if everything has got really on top of you with anxiety and all sorts of things. And you know, it does take you out of that, but you are not going into the light. You're going into a calming, relaxing process. And it's very illusionary when compared to going towards the light and meditating. And in extreme, it will land you up in a mental institution. I have total proof of that. I've also been working, actually I was on a college course doing sustainable environment 2-year college course, and I was, because they knew the other things that I did, I was asked in the downtime to take some visualization classes with people, and I did this really deep visualization into outside the cosmos and coming back with a group. And one of the people in the group I didn't know, all the rest I did, but this person I could not get back for quite a while. They went off somewhere and could not come back. And I had to use all sorts of techniques. I did get this person back to this reality. But afterwards I questioned the person who brought them, who was somebody I knew quite well. And they said they'd picked up this hitchhiker, and he had stayed at their house, and he was a massive dope smoker. And this was what prompted me, that before anything that I ever did, for a good many years after that, I checked whether there were any constant dope users in the room, because this was a crazy situation. And I just had to work on intuition. Because I had no knowledge before the happening as to what the person was into. So that's a really good example of what I'm talking about. But I'm going to read you this card. Actually, I pulled it this morning just after having this conversation with a client. And the 2 coming up together has prompted me to put forward this video because I think so many people are in the dark about this, and do not understand the difference and the clash and the clashes with a lot of things. If you are taking antidepressant drugs or strong medication that is working artificially, because that's what they do with your psychological system, then do not start to meditate, because again the clash is there in huge ways, and there should be a caution given to anybody about that. So let's have a look and see what they're saying in the Starseed Oracle on this addiction card. The Starseed Soul Inquiry on this is, what are you clinging to for fear of nothing coming to take its place? And I think that is a huge prompt to people who are still taking things that anesthetize them. And included in that would be alcohol, drugs, food, because if people are into food addiction too, it's exactly the same. And obviously the marijuana drug, which is considered a light drug and not a class A, but it's actually psychologically a huge stymieing process that happens with people who take marijuana a lot of the time. Let's have a look and see what else. I need to get stronger glasses. This is such small print. When you have Oracle card packs, they do a tiny book that goes in the box, and consequently, if you put a tiny book that explains all the cards into the box, it's going to be very tiny print. I wish they would go on to a large extra book. Okay, let's have a look at this. If this card appears, you're being called to find the courage to loosen your grip and give up control, to release your coping mechanisms and leave space for grace and God to enter, to surrender all that feels dense to the divine. That's an amazing statement to remember. Loosening your grip doesn't mean, goodness, let me just clear this glass that I'm using. Loosening your grip doesn't mean that what you're clinging to will go away. It may, or it may stay, but you can be sure that what is for you will find you, and you'll breathe easier knowing that you've shifted from relying on your own strength to surrendering to the grace of life. The things we cling to often cover up our most vulnerable space, the part we're most afraid to leave empty, the part we guard and don't let grace into. But by keeping that space covered with something that doesn't serve us, or clinging to it for fear of it not staying of its own accord, we prevent ourselves from receiving the things that will. And that's it, isn't it? You know, the addictions cover up our sacred space, our vulnerable space. And this is such an important subject that ought to be talked about more as to what the addictions are actually doing. Because there is always something behind the addiction that is to do with the vulnerability of who we really are and how vulnerable we feel if we allow that part to live in its rightful position within us. So take heed from this information, because for me today, with it coming up twice, I thought this is something I only talk about really with clients when it comes up individually, but really it needs to be spoken about more. And I think one of the wildest parts of this is that people think that they are getting enlightened when they get up and feel good every morning because they smoke a joint, because they never go beyond that point of comfort and chilled out, man. And it's really interesting. I have a rule with clients that they have to be at least 3 days without marijuana in their system, because I've had clients come to me over the years who are not retaining anything I say, and it has no effect on them at all. And mostly when it has been addicted marijuana clients, I've done this at a very low fee, or in fact quite often free, because I've wanted to help them get out of that really numbing, illusionary, anesthetizing cycle. And so I waste my time. And so my rule has been there for a long, long time. Sometimes I'm taken by surprise because I forget to say to the client, or I don't even imagine that this client who I've met maybe, out socially or something, is going to be one of those people. But you'll be surprised how many people are anesthetizing down. But the most frightening thing is knowing that having seen 3 people I knew personally end up in mental institutions because they did not know. They had started thinking that they ought to wake up and do something, but they were still doing the old routine at the same time. And I would say this applies definitely to alcohol as well. And certainly my rule on that would be hopefully at least 24 hours without alcohol in the system. Because I certainly couldn't, when I think of the people I've helped to overcome the alcohol addiction, I've certainly not been able to do 3 days with some of them. It's had to be 24 hours. And then you go from there with the healing process. But just be aware of the clash of illusionary anesthetizing substances with meditation, or with any light-giving techniques. There may be other things. I'm not sure. Things like sound baths, which I go to frequently, I mean, the high resonance that is received and the connection that you get with the divine is incredible. But I'm not sure that's going to help people who, if they went there on substances. I'll have to ask the guy who and the lady who run the healing group that I go to with sound, as to whether they've had anything go wrong there, because I'm not sure about that one. But I would say there are a lot of modalities, healing modalities, that do not work well when they give you that real surge of light with somebody who is still on substances. And then you would have to, if you are a practitioner, you would have to use your own intuition on how long they would need to be free of that substance, because you want to help them. And it's like with alcoholics, the 24-hour was the best I could give, really, because they needed help. And if I'd have said 3 days, maybe they'd have never caught that 3 days in order to come for a little bit of inspiration. But anyway, thank you for listening to this, and please subscribe and like the video if it's given you any sort of help, because I think this is a really huge subject that needs to be talked about more, so that we do not have these conflicting things happen. The client that I had this morning was actually taking has food addictions, so they were actually taking a drug that psychologically helps them not to want to eat. And none of us even know what those are doing to the state of who we are. A crazy thing. And she is now quite happy to go on doing the healing journey with releasing her shadow self, which she has been involved in, because she's having clashes of really bad dark energies and light coming in by actually doing one or the other. She's going to be in a better state. If she needs to carry on psychologically because she thinks she needs that drug, then it's better for her to take that drug and carry on until she can stop that and then begin the healing journey. Otherwise, it's dangerous. So look at the conflict of dark and light. It's huge. Thank you for listening.